I think everything that happens in one's life is for a reason. And even though I probably won't practice actuarial science for the rest of my life, I think the journey I went through has helped me in now empowering other women who find themselves in similar situations.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay,
Amazing.
that's really interesting. I think you can now proceed from where you had left off in terms of your journey.
Yeah, so I started my workplace or my work experience journey in that sort of setting, and I truly felt I didn't belong. You know, going for lunch with people who had holidays in Disneyland, and I only could talk about trips to the village with my
Yeah.
grandmother. You know, the typical holiday for
Yeah,
a
December
Kenyan child.
shags.
Shags.
So did you used to come to Kenya, or you had family in SA, or like you all moved to SA?
Yeah, so we would visit Kenya quite
Okay,
often.
okay.
And I guess we'll talk about the story of how I've landed back here.
Okay.
But visiting family was very much a tradition
Yes.
that we kept in our family. And so I just couldn't relate. I love sharing this story because it's so real. I remember I think it was the first work lunch we had. We went to a Japanese restaurant. So you can imagine the cutlery that was brought out for us to use.
Chopsticks.
Chopsticks. And I am looking at these chopsticks and I'm looking at these dumplings and I'm like, how am I going to pick these dumplings with these chopsticks?
Yeah.
And so it was just such a different world. And, you know, it seems like such an insignificant thing. But when you're sitting there in
Wow.
a table of 20 other professionals, and you're supposed to know, but you didn't even know that you're supposed to know these kind of things because that's like deemed as etiquette on the table. And you're there and you don't know, you just all of a sudden just feel like you don't belong. And
Yeah.
that feeling kind of just keeps increasing and increasing every time you have those experiences. And I share this because I had to rewrite for me what it means to belong. And I had to realize that there was no way I could rewrite my past. My parents raised me the way they raised me, and there were things that probably ways they raised me that maybe it doesn't serve me now, but
Yeah.
I can't be victim to that anymore.
They
And
raised you how they thought was best.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, yeah, I had to figure these things out by myself. And, you know, they definitely affected, you know, how you relate with people in a social context will affect how they treat you in a professional context.
Yeah. But also, I think the industries you've mentioned, the finance, the accounting, the tech, there's a certain way I'd say, go out of their way to kind of make you feel left out if you're not that certain kind of person. You
Not
see, like those people
aggressive.
in, like, I don't know if you watched Suits, or I don't know, like there's just a way that they, on top of being the only woman or the only person of color, there's also just that culture that they have that is a lot. It's a lot to take in if you're, especially when you're getting into it. It's like you have to be this persona of a bit what a business person in this industry is supposed to look like. And I don't know how I feel about that. It's almost like being yourself or saying that, I don't know how to use these chopsticks is almost like taboo yourself. I mean, you don't do this rich people thing. Like, you don't know how to
Imagine, as if
like,
you're supposed to know
belong.
everything. Okay, anyway, yeah. Yeah.
So
it
yeah,
sounds
I
crazy,
think I
but-
completely understand where you're coming from.
And
But,
maybe also
yeah.
cliquey.
And
Yes,
clicky.
Yes, I think
yes,
also
very
much
clicky.
very much
Yes.
clicky. And that would affect the project. So I started off in a consulting firm, and that would affect the projects I would be put on, because if, you know, the manager is a white man who watches rugby and does all these things and takes his kids to Disney, and I'm there and I don't really have common stories to share with him,
Yeah.
it's going to be awkward. He's going to feel awkward putting me on his project.
Yes.
Because how are we going to relate?
Yes.
Wow.
So finding yourself in that environment is very tough. And I've been having a conversation with a very good friend of mine. I won't mention her name because this might be slightly personal, but I won't overdo it. She's in a European country and they speak a different language, and she got a job, but the job initially was working from home because she was back in Kenya, so it was easier then. But now she's in the office, everybody is speaking this language, and whoever she's working with directly also speaks this language. It's kind of like the accountable Black people in the office. So she was just sharing with me, she's finding it very difficult to find her place. Not that she's not good at her work, but when they even go for lunch, when they're having conversations, now do they have to code switch into talking English to be inclusive, or the things that they like, I'm not really liking. So finding that place has been quite difficult for her, and I think it's almost similar to the experience you were having.
Yeah, so I definitely made a lot of mistakes, and I'm sure you can imagine one of the mistakes I made and I've learned from it is, first of all, I tried to fit in. So I tried so hard to try and fit in. I would even literally start watching things that I didn't even like certain sports, so that at least on really Monday, when the weekend news is being shared, at least I can contribute to some of these conversations. And I learned how to use chopsticks. I asked one of my friends at work, who was so gracious to show me. But in that process, I also realized, hang on, I wasn't being true to who you are. And when you're not in your full authenticity, you actually can't operate at your full potential. So it was actually hindering me. I thought I was doing it to move ahead in my career, but it was actually hindering me because I was not being who I really was.
And plus, maybe you're going like, okay, you're making a comment, and guys in the office are like, oh, okay, now I guess you watched the game now.
Yeah, it didn't come out as natural as you're thinking it is. So
Max
instead of
Verstappen that you're talking about,
instead of fitting in, they're like, Sasa, what is she? Trying too hard. So it's sort of,
it comes out when you're trying too hard. Like it comes out, and then you're that person who's trying too hard to fit in. Yeah, people through those things.
Yeah. They might not say it, but they definitely do see through any form of inauthenticity. And even in meetings, like I would try, naturally I'm, calm, sort of peaceful. That's just my demeanor. And I would try to be this, boisterous, kind of, challengey kind of person, a type of aggressive, but it also wasn't working. And it didn't really achieve what I thought it would achieve. And, I had to rewrite the version and really think of the version of me who is in my fullest potential. Who is she? And just be true to her and believe, first of all, that there was a place that would see me for who I am and where I could thrive being 100% myself. Yeah. Because the truth is that there are places that won't accommodate my kind of personality, right? And sometimes we have to go through those experiences. Toxic workplaces is a real thing, right? So I don't think it's also right to say that everywhere you go will accommodate the kind of person you are. You've got to find it, but you've got to first to know for yourself who it is that you want to show up as, and what is the version of you who is achieving, who is thriving, who is at that top level in your career. How does she carry herself, and then start being her now.
I love that. Wow.
There's something you've said that you can't operate at your highest self when you're not in an authentic environment. And I think a lot of people go through that. You try, even me in school, I dropped out. I was doing financial economics. I discontinued. I didn't drop out. Drop out sounds so... so even we had units with the actual students because it was in the same school. And I was just in those classes, I'm like, I did go for math contest, but it wasn't as serious, I was like, I got an A in math, but this is not it. Like I knew, okay, I can complete the program, but when I go out there, will I be operating as the Alexia that I was created to be, So it was those decisions you had to make because, it's just like, okay, see you guys, it was good while it lasted. But I feel like, as you said, you operate in your highest capacity when you're doing things that are authentically you or being authentically you.
And there are a lot of people with those workspace and environments, not not out of choice but out of circumstance. Like there are people who fear looking for the next step because you'll be surprised how when you're in that space you convince yourself that you can't get better opportunities rather than this one that you have. And so you convince yourself that this is the space that I need to be. If I need to fit in, I'll need to figure it out. But you're just not authentic, you're not happy,